All right, Damien, thank you. Joining us live in studio this morning, we've got U.S. Senator James Lankford up early, joining the News 4 crew in the studio. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Good to see you this morning.
You were just telling us there are no votes in Washington today,
No votes
so you got
today.
kind of a long weekend.
That's correct. So I'll be back in tomorrow. So it's nice to be home on a Monday. It's a rare thing for me.
Yeah. Well, let's start off by talking about what everyone is talking about going on in Washington right now, this impeachment inquiry. A lot of folks around America are split on this issue. A lot of folks are decided already on this issue. It's a tense time in Washington. Are you open to your opinion changing on this one, or are you pretty set in where you think this one is going to head?
Well, so far we haven't seen a lot of facts come out. We've seen a lot of accusations, but unfortunately the hearings in the House have all been behind closed doors in the basement of their building, and so we don't know what the accusations really are, other than the phone call. And the phone call, of course, the president made public immediately. So that came out right away, and now we don't know what the rest of the accusations are. So we'll wait and see what's going on with this. But I don't see anyone changing their mind at this point. As I've traveled around Oklahoma and been in all parts of the state, people either really don't like the president or they really do, and they can't figure out what all this accusation is about. And so we'll wait and see what the House is actually bringing out. They could have done this public from the beginning, and I'm still not sure why they chose to do private hearings behind closed doors at the very beginning.
But of course, Republicans have been on those committees, so it's really not in private, so to say, as far as your party not having access to it.
Right. So they've been in what's called a SCIF, in a secure setting, and they've been told not to be able to disclose anything that's happened behind closed doors. There'll be 9 hours of testimony. They'll release maybe 3 minutes of that. It'll be a good asset to be able to have the actual text of what was said behind closed doors. That'll be helpful in the process. And there's no real sunlight that's in there, I guess, at that point. Everyone's still trying to get bits and pieces of what actually happened. It is a very divisive thing when you go through an impeachment time period. It is a major constitutional event. You want to have as much of that in public as you possibly can, because this is conversation about overturning an election. That's not a small thing.
Of course, they will have the public hearings very soon. You're talking about divided Washington. You're known as one of the lawmakers that will reach across the aisle,
sure,
and you've worked with Democratic lawmakers there. What's it going to take for Washington to become a more friendly place? It's very difficult right now.
It is difficult right now. The key thing is finding common ground. Where do we agree on things and to be able to move on it? There should be common ground, for instance, on the trade agreements. The USMCA trade agreement, it should have wide bipartisan support. It has not gone on the floor of the House. It'd be helpful to be able to have a vote on that, because I think it would be unifying. I think there's 300 plus votes in the House for it right now. They've not put it on the floor. Finding ways to be able to say we can work on these things together and actually make progress makes a big help. There's nothing like progress to actually get everyone's attitude and get everything to start to go. But once you sit back and say, okay, we're going to just fight each other, then it's hard to be able to get out of that.
No, makes sense. Let's talk about the 2020 election a little bit. You know, we're a short time off, and we're already well into election season. Are you concerned at all about, we were talking about Russian meddling in the election, or even improprieties here at home? What do you think about the 2020 election? And do you think we're going to have a solid, clean American election for 2020?
I think we will, actually, for 2020. We did for 2018. There was significant differences made between the 2016 election and the 2018 election. I started in 2017 actually working on a bill on election security. As you were mentioning before about bipartisan work, Amy Klobuchar and I worked on this for 3 years together. The things that are in our bill have already been implemented by the Department of Homeland Security federally. That is getting security clearances. We have security clearances for individuals in Oklahoma to be able to get information immediately now. We have more cooperation between the federal government and the states to be able to watch out for issues of cybersecurity now. We now have the opportunity to be able to put an additional layer of security on top of all of our election systems. Additional federal dollars were given to Oklahoma and every other state to be able to help them get ready for their election. So there's a lot that has happened since 2016 to be able to help each individual state. But ultimately, states run elections. We don't have a federal election system that has to all be done the same. But it's important that we have that engagement, and we have had that engagement. So I would expect it to be a smooth election behind the scenes. I would expect it to be noisy everywhere else as we go through the process.
Well,
Already noisy.
Like Facebook infiltrating and all of that.
Yeah, for sure. Talking about Oklahoma, what federal legislation do you think is going to affect Oklahomans the most right now?
Well, right now, obviously, the spending bills that are coming up. This time of year, we should be going through what are called 12 appropriation bills. That affects everything from highways and schools and homeless work and everything else. Right. So it's very, very significant to us. The Senate just passed 4 of those last week. We're waiting to be able to conference those with the House, but we still have 8 to go to be able to get those through. We have an initial deadline of the 21st of November, but if we don't hit that, then we'll get an extension on top of that.
You don't think there'll be a shutdown?
I don't think there'll be a shutdown, but I actually have a bill. This is another bipartisan bill with Maggie Hassan from New Hampshire. She and I have worked together on forming a bill on ending government shutdowns entirely. We've had 21 government shutdowns in the last 40 years. 21.
Right.
So this is not a new phenomenon, but it's one that needs to end. And so she and I have worked together to be able to make sure we hold federal workers and those families harmless as there's a fight in Washington over spending, but to make sure that we don't have a shutdown in that sense, but we do actually get the work done.
What are the biggest obstacles in passing that measure?
Well, status quo is always the biggest obstacle in Washington, D.C. No one likes the shutdowns, but everyone knows the devil they know at this point. And to say if this is an unknown, it's a change. The simple change that she and I have recommended is that you leave federal workers harmless, continue on with the current spending if you get to the end of the fiscal year, but members of Congress and our staff cannot travel. We have to stay in Washington, D.C. You can't move to bills other than appropriations related, and we're there 7 days a week working through it. So at that point, everyone has to stay and keep going until you get your work done. Quite frankly, there are 44 states that have something very, very similar to that in their current operating system. It's not a radical idea, but it's only radical in Washington, D.C. So we're trying to be able to get us down to the spot where we can get the work done, and that would help all of us.
We look forward to talking to you as we get closer to that deadline.
Look forward to that.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for your time.
Sure, it's good to be able to see you all again.
I know this is like a long weekend for you and a vacation, so we're putting you to work.
So that's why I'm here this early in the morning, because it's just like vacation. Yeah,
this is vacation for a lawmaker, right?
Yeah,
4 a.m. wake up.
Listen, just being able to be home is a big deal right now, and so head back to it tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so
Senator.
much.
You bet. Good to see you all.
Good to
Have a
see
great
you
day.
too.